us about you and how, how we came to be here today, I guess.
Yeah. So my family has owned an insurance agency for, let's see, I'm 34. They've owned an insurance agency for at least 30 years, probably. So it's kind of the regular conversation at dinner, anytime we're all together, and it always has been. I originally started in personal lines about, let's see, I graduated college in 2008. So in 2009, I started working at the agency, started off in personal lines, went off my separate ways because I graduated with a marketing degree and wanted to do that, landed myself in corporate events. And then from there is when I somehow managed to find my way into photo booths after getting laid off. And then after that, I hated a company that I was working for, told them I wanted to go into sales. And they said, we think you'd be great at that somewhere else. So I had about a month to find a job. That didn't happen. And this was right before COVID hit. So I had started working back at the agency again. And then we started talking about succession planning and moved into commercial insurance. So I've been doing commercial insurance for the past like 3 years now. And my brother is honestly the one who's trained me. He's brilliant. So, but we've been around in this for a long time.
Very cool. Okay. So, I don't know, ladies, I would say type out some questions as they come.
Yeah. Any questions that you have, throw them in the chat. I can see everybody's stuff here.
And then, so just to kind of get started, tell us, come on, Jessica, do we really need insurance? I mean, do you?
Yeah, you really do. Yes, you do need insurance. We have a pretty, I mean, it's not as high of a liability exposure as other types of businesses that people are in, but we are a business interacting with children, especially, can end up being a very touchy subject. I know you're driving your car there. I know that you might be hooking up a trailer. And if you have people working for you, they're driving their cars. So we can talk a little bit about the different types of auto policies for businesses, and how to make sure you're covered there. But you have equipment. You might not be able to fulfill your contract. Anything that you have stored, I'm assuming most people are like me, it's in your basement. What's going to happen if that gets ruined? And what kind of steps are you ready to take if it gets ruined? So you definitely have multiple different exposures that are just accidents waiting for it to happen, really. And that's what the insurance is for.
So you're talking like equipment stuff, and then doesn't homeowners carry some of that stuff, since like it's parked in your driveway or anything?
No, it does not. And there's a couple things that are going to play into it. I guess my little disclaimer here. I am licensed in Ohio and Pennsylvania. Generally speaking, the insurance is going to be very similar state by state, especially on the property side of things. So I'm going to talk like super high level, but always check with your agent if you have one. If you're in Ohio or PA, you can reach out to me directly. If you're not, I might be able to set you up with somebody else. Maybe not sure. But as far as homeowners goes, there are a lot of people look at it from their business liability portion would be covered on their homeowners. That's not going to be the case. And then on the opposite side, your equipment probably will not be adequately covered, just because of the type of equipment that we're dealing with. I don't know if we lost Julia.
Okay, sorry. Okay, awesome. Cool. Okay. So, what are some questions that someone would ask if they didn't have insurance and knew that they needed to get it, or were told that they would needed to get it, but did, you know, like maybe they have different sorts of booths, like 360 booths or drop off booths, or
Mhm.
what would be good questions to ask to make sure that they're covered?
So when it comes to the different things, let me actually pull up. I have my policy pulled up here. So we can walk through taking a look at that, and kind of give you a high level of what you want covered. And I'll be totally honest with you, I haven't touched my policy in a while. And I do need to make some changes, but let's share my screen. And this will give you, which screen can you see? Are you able to see?
I can, well, I think we can see the sidebar, and then, oh yeah, we can see the main screen. I had to hide the other participants for myself to be able to see the.
Are you seeing Facebook, or are you seeing commercial general liability?
Yeah, I see the liability. Yeah.
Okay, great. That was the screen I picked. Okay, so the first portion of it is going to be, you're looking here at what is your insured company name. So this is mine. You have your policy term and your policy numbers. So the first things that you're going to be looking at are your liability portion. This is going to be what your coverage is toward other people, not yourself. So as far as, I know we've talked about doing some hints on minimums. The minimum insurance that you want is going to be 1 million per occurrence, over here. And then you're going to want to have a $2 million aggregate. So that's like the maximum that your policy is going to pay out. And your hired non-owned auto, 1 million. And this is going to be mostly based off of what the average payouts are anymore for different types of claims. But that's why our minimum in office is 1 million, 2 million.
And
Some
then,
of your policies will give you these extra endorsements that add in some other items that you may not have off the bat. Not required by any stretch, but usually has the other recommended coverages that make life a little easier. And then here you can see these are going to be your different codes of what it is you're doing. And over here on premium basis, you can see how your policy is rated. So it's going to be rated based off of gross sales most of the time, for something like what we are doing.
can I ask you a question about that? Okay,
Yep.
so the insurance that I have, it asks like the value of the equipment. Like is that?
That's going to be a different portion. This is just on the liability side.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so this is kind of where you would also want to be mentioning to any of your agents that you may be dropping off booths. If you're doing the unattended booths, they may want to add a classification for vending. And again, that would generally be on a premium. It would normally be on a premium basis. This is going to vary company by company. They may not do vending on there at all. But that's going to, like you said, with your property portion, come more into play there, where your inland marine coverage is going to be your property of your equipment. And they're going to want to know whether it's attended or unattended. And that's going to be varied based off of the carrier that you have. So for me, Auto Owners is a regional company. They're very highly rated. They have really great claims handling. They usually, if they're available in your area, it's going to be a top of the food chain kind of company to go with, just because of how easy they are to work with. They do allow vending and drop-off service, but not everybody is, and you're going to want to check on that with your agent.
So is it usually, like, say for the drop off, if like if you say that, is it that they don't include it in like a standard policy, or would that be something that they could, but you might just have to purchase separately for like a one-off kind of event?
It's not going to necessarily be something where you're purchasing it one off per like by event. It's going to be more of an issue of the fact that your equipment is not being watched. So if there is a claim, there's nobody there to say like how it happened or what happened. It's just an extra exposure for the carrier.
Okay. Hey, before you go on to something else, there's a few questions in here about the auto part of it that you were just
Trying
talking
to see.
about.
Owners. We'll circle back. We'll come back to these.
Okay.
We have a lot of questions about auto, which is super important. So we'll definitely hit on these. So what do you think? You want to talk about the inland marine coverages next for the property that we use?
Yeah,
let's
let's do that. That seems to be a big one because that, yeah, because that obvious. I'm sorry, I'm thinking out loud here. So that's going to be separate than the liability portion as far as
Yes.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So your liability portion is going to be similar with your auto policy. You know, that's something that you guys probably are more used to talking about in general. Your liability portion is going to be your exposure toward injuring other people or other people's property. So that's what your liability is for. Now, for your business property, all of your equipment and photo boothing is not staying in your house. It moves because we're taking it from our house or our storage unit, and then we're taking it somewhere else all across town, right? So the history of the inland marine is actually that marine coverage would be items that were coming across the ocean on a boat. So if you think about it that way, inland marine is you have taken the stuff off of the boat and you are now transporting it inland. So that's the background, kind of makes it a little easier to understand. So as I said, I've acquired a lot of stuff over the past like 2 years. So this is not an adequate limit for me. But you know, I'm not necessarily going to claim my props if they break in a car accident, for instance. So that's when your item is moving from one area to another area. And you're going to want to have all of your computers, your surfaces, your booth shells, your cameras, your cords, all of those items for what it would be for a total loss right here. Like think of it as you put everything that you own in a trailer and you're taking it out because you have a really big night with multiple booths at one point in time. If anyone here is using multiple booths, that's how much you want to have coverage for. Because freak accidents do happen. And this is going to vary, you know, based on what business, you know, what your business currently owns. But the reason that you want to have it on an inland marine versus business property is going to be because you're moving it.
So you wouldn't necessarily have to put, like, if there's things that you use to run your business, but there are things like, for example, like the computer that I use to do all my designing and all that, I would leave at home because it's a desktop. So that wouldn't necessarily need to be in this section.
Right.
Okay.
These are the things that you're taking from A to B. And then you can also have some other miscellaneous items or some other, I have my stuff stored in 2 different places. So you can also have some, you know, business personal property that are things that you use to run your business. And that could be anything from your desk to your computer. It really varies based on, you know, what it is that you are using. I have a printer, I have some filing cabinets, things like that.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
That premium, is that per month, per year, or per 6 months?
This is per year.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. And we can do a breakdown on that too, because I know some people are buying it event by event. So I pulled up this company here called One Day Event, and it's a terrible price. So I do not recommend that.
Yeah, when I first got started and when I thought that it was, I was like, well, I don't know how much I'm gonna do, and then it was to find out that the one event was, maybe the half of what it would be for the entire year. That was a no-brainer.
Yeah. So that's going to be the biggest basis here. I'm happy to share this with anybody if they want to take a look at it. If this is a little bit different from how your policy is set up. But again, like I said earlier, we've been in business for a really long time. We coin ourselves, or we pride ourselves on we target commercial insurance. And we do a lot of small business insurance. So this is how we recommend setting it up.
So are you guys like insurance brokers? Like you find insurance for people?
Yeah,
Or
it's basically it's a similar setup. You can almost use the term independent agent and broker interchanged.
Okay.
But that's we're an independent agent.
Okay. And then are there tools for people to, like I saw where you had your deductible. And so sometimes, you might choose a higher deductible because you think that nothing's going to happen, so you can have your rate lower. I mean, like, what would be something like if people were price shopping if they saw two different rates that were extremely different, what would be some things that they would need to make sure that they're taking a look at?
The biggest things you're going to want to look at are going to be obviously the deductible. I mean, similar to if you're shopping for your homeowner and your auto policies. You're going to want to look at what the deductible is. I have mine set at 500. I'm comfortable paying that out of pocket. And in all honesty, like if I'm going to experience a loss, I'm personally not going to make a claim for something under $500. It's not going to be worth it. I don't feel like rolling the dice on either being non-renewed or just seeing, a really heavy rate increase because I was not willing to spend $500 out of pocket. But that's me, and that varies business by business. So it's always something to take a look at. We have plenty of businesses with $1,000 deductibles. Once it gets up there pretty high, we have some that are $10,000 deductibles. But it varies business by business. The other thing you're going to want to look at, always make sure if it's rated by sales, what your sales number are. Because if it ends up being a policy where they can do an audit at the end of the year, you may experience a bill for earned premium, which is something that's not too uncommon. And then the other thing I would say to look at would always be check these limits of insurance. Definitely, everyone here needs to at least have hired non-owned. It's really only going to be like $100. It's not much. And we'll come back to that because we have a lot of questions about auto here. But that's something you definitely want to have on your policy. And then some of these other things, I have these on here because we recommend putting these on, these little endorsements, just because it gives you some extra coverage that if you try to add it on individually, it gets really expensive. But like this blanket waiver of subrogation, these are things that we're starting to see more and more within contracting business. So we recommend putting that on there just because it's inexpensive when you do it as the plus endorsements, but you don't necessarily have to have that on there.
Okay, so I've never been asked about like what your like gross sales are. I mean, are those gross sales like, say you have 10 events and each one is $500, like that sort of thing, or
so these are looking at the annual numbers. It's basically how much exposure the company has for insuring your business. So it can vary. I want to say that for auto owners here, the 25,000 is actually the minimum. A lot of our small business policies do sit at the minimum. And my entire premium right here at $558, which I paid in full, is just over their threshold of $500 minimum premium. Most of these policies are probably going to sit around there in general.
Okay, oops. Yep, okay. Okay.
Are you looking through your list?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, let me, I was actually gonna upgrade the Zoom so it doesn't cut us off.
Okay.
Let's see. What was I gonna ask? Well, I don't, on my list,
Okay, so I have another question,
Yeah.
if I may. Do all of these have to have the gross sales included in the policy, or are
Not
there some?
necessarily. It varies company by company. They may rate it off of sales, they may not. You can come in, but don't come up here. I have 2 cats. They're very nosy. They love to make appearances on calls. Makes me look very professional.
Let them in. We don't care.
The
Other
problem is they'll probably walk all over the keyboard. Somebody was asking about liability coverage. I have pulled that back up here so you can see what the minimums are. And I think, I'm sorry, I don't know how to say your name, and I'm going to butcher it if I say it. I believe that Auto Owners is going to be available to you in Michigan. But the best thing that you could do would be to contact an independent agent, just because they'll be able to look at a few different options. One of our other tops, we use Cincinnati Insurance, Westfield Insurance, and Western Reserve Group. I have not personally run my policy with them each individually to know whether or not they will cover something like this. But I believe that most of them will. And in all honesty, basically, if they do a lot of advertising, it's probably going to cost a little bit more. So our independents, you might get a better value for your dollar. As far as coverage goes, it's usually how it works out. Oh, look, our meeting now has unlimited minutes.
yes, we can talk all night about insurance now.
All night. All right.
Oh,
so
I have a question.
what you
Okay.
got?
So, a lot of venues, I would say probably 75% of the venues that I worked with, they
Mhm.
want a certificate of liability or whatever they call it.
You mean like this?
Yes.
Fine, terrible example.
No, it's awesome. But I mean, and so mine, do we want to like the insurance that I'm using? And granted, I found them online. I've had them forever. I've obviously, I guess insurance is only as good as what happens when you need to file a claim.
Which
It's
is
like
always a good reason to take a look. Just do a simple Google search.
Yeah. And so mine, I love it because I can pay online. And then I can create this additionally insured for the venues. So what exactly does this mean? And what is this is just to kind of protect the venue, but does this make any more like liability for us, or is it just showing them?
No. So the certificate itself is something that's going to come from your company or your broker, such as somebody like me. And what it does is it's just telling them that there is a policy in place. And then it's summarizing, like you can see over here, where it has the liability limits. They're telling you if it's claims made or per occurrence. They forgot what this is. That's important. You don't really need to know much about this, but that's in our court. but it's really just summarizing what the policy covers. This does not extend the insurance to the certificate holder unless you start looking at these boxes here where it says additional insured. So to kind of piggyback on that here, there's two columns. You have your additional insured column and your subrogation waiver column. So this is extensive, and we got a good laugh out of this one. I'm really sorry to whoever, I forget who it was that had posted this one because it is so excessive. This additional insured column, when it comes to the additional insured, it's associating that certificate holder with your general liability or your auto or your umbrella. They're not going to necessarily be looking for, they're not going to ask to be additional insured on your booth property. And you would have a different form for that. But in a nutshell, when you have an additional insured on your policy, it changes the way that your policy is written. And it extends the liability on your policy to that certificate holder. There's usually a charge associated with that, and it's going to vary company by company. Or like I said before, some of these blankets right here will automatically extend that. And then similarly, the waiver of subrogation basically means that the insurer is protecting from seeking recovery against the certificate holder.
Okay.
So it's giving them like an extra protection that your insurance company is not going to go after their insurance company to pay them back.
Right. Okay.
So you
So,
see that a lot in car insurance.
oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So if you were to have, like I have, I white label out my events to other people.
Mhm.
But then I am still the one that, creates the certificate for the venue. Like, is that anything that kind of could come back on me since I'm not the person actually doing the event? Like,
It's
you know what I
going to
mean?
depend on how your policy reads. You would want to check what your definition is of an insured within your policy declarations pages. Basically, you would be looking for something that's talking about subcontractors and whether or not they are considered an insured on your policy.
Okay. Good to
So I'm going
know.
to throw that back to you guys. Because again, it's sometimes when you see like these endorsements, that may change it. So not knowing what everybody on the call has on their policy makes it a little tougher. I have to make sure you guys don't sue me.
You're the expert. You tell us what else you've got online. Those were the only things I knew how to ask.
That's what you had?
Yeah.
Okay. So the other thing, we have a lot of questions about auto policies. And then, so I want to talk about that. I do want to touch very quickly on two things. The first one is these day-by-day events. So this one here is $71 for exactly what I have right now. You don't have a deductible on your liability portion with most policies. That may be different. Check your policy. The medical payment here is at 5,000 minus 10,000. Your medical payment is basically like, here, take the money, shut up and go away. And that's how it works. And that's why we put it on there. So, pull out my calculator. If my current policy is 500, what do we say? $58, something like that. We'll just make it 500, make it easier. And I'm going to divide that by 71. That means that you've worked 7 events and you've purchased this 7 times. It's not really a good deal compounded with the fact that if you look at my policy here, my general liability is only $95. You're probably, like I said, going to get hit with a $500 minimum premium regardless. I know that some of those policies like RV Mutuo offers are a little bit lower. I ran a quote for myself. It wasn't quite comparable when I added in what I have, but that's going to vary, business by business and what everybody else is covering. So that was the first thing I wanted to talk about here with having these one day policies. I'm going to go ahead and close that tab. The next thing that I wanted to talk about is your homeowner policy. So under your homeowners, and this is a strict example coming right off of the policy that my fiance and I have. You might see something where you get this incidental business questionnaire. Your business is maybe your primary income, maybe not. Again, they're going to ask, how much are you making doing that? What are your gross sales? Is this your primary office in your home? Are other businesses on here? They want to know the square footage. These are the same questions that we get asked when we are doing a property portion on a business with an actual office. So then these are some of the same things that we're going to see there too. Now, if I come over to my homeowners policy, you can see here that it has coverage for form HO0442, which is this. And if we read through it, again, this is strictly Westfield Insurance and pretty much every other carrier that we offer in office. And then I'll touch on the other reason I'm going to tell you to take it off of your homeowner. We cover the business described in the declarations conducted by an insured on the residence premises in the dwelling. We're already not this person. We're not tutoring. We're not making, not candles. You can't make candles in your house and usually get that covered by your homeowner because it might burn it down. And it's considered an explosive. But, we're not making things with our Cricut and printing signs. So we're already disqualified from this. We're not doing our business on our property, which is the way that 90% of those policies with these endorsements, that's how they're being written. So if you are banking on that, if your agent has told you that it works, it might, but it probably doesn't. And the other reason is going to be here. The person that's insured for me is JL Pro LLC, doing business as Steel City Selfies. On my homeowner's policy, it's going to say Kevin Batchelor and Jessica Palmer. We're not the two people who are doing business here. JL Pro is doing business. So that's where you're going to have another issue. The other thing that you're going to also bump into is going to be the fact that you might make yourself uninsurable if you try to make a claim and then it does get covered. They might not renew you. Probably would. Or it'll be flat out denied and then you're going to have to pay it out of pocket. So not recommended at all. Any questions on that? You don't see any right now?
Oh, so I have, sorry, had to unmute. So you're saying just to have your business policy covering your equipment and don't mix it with the homeowners, or say if you're renting your renters, just leave that separate. You're already covered with your equipment on your regular policy.
So you want to separate everything out. It's a form of risk management, really, when you think about it. So by having, even with, do you have an LLC?
Not at the moment.
Not at the moment. Okay, that's fine. You can still do a commercial insurance policy as a sole proprietor. So in my case, it would be the named insured here. Instead of being JL Pro, would be Jessica Palmer doing business as Steel City Selfies.
Right.
So I'm being specifically covered for that. I'm covering my liability to other people, and then I'm covering my equipment specific to my business.
So you don't need it on the homeowners, even if your equipment's stored at your home or whatever, it's covered under.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, that's
Because
what
the
I
other question that you're probably going to get asked a question by your adjuster is like, well, can you explain to me, Jessica, why you have 20 computers sitting in a storage unit? What are you doing with them? Like they're gonna ask the question. You can lie. It's usually called fraud. So we don't recommend doing that.
well, that's a
But
good, because I know a lot of people, it seems, the businesses don't always fully disclose their value of stuff, but
Mhm.
but if I have stuff, because for example, so okay, for me, I rent.
Yeah.
So I have a virtual business office for licensing purposes. I do
Sure.
pretty much work from home. I have my garage and my home office, but I
Mhm.
also have a storage unit. Um, so the storage unit has insurance on it as well because I don't have homeowners insurance to cover it.
Sure.
So the question is, and I have just basic general liability insurance, but the reason I'm on this call is because obviously I'm getting more equipment and do want to get
Mhm.
it. So basically, even though I keep my photo booth here, my 3 photo booths and my 3 laptops,
Mhm.
um, and printer, I still don't need that covered under the home, just the basic business insurance. You just tell them that do they
Yeah. No, you don't want to cover it under your homeowner. So there's a couple of things that are going to come into play on your homeowner. You're probably going to see a higher deductible to begin with. And then you would end up having to schedule it differently. Over here, so you can see that my coverage, sorry, I went to the wrong spot. I have unscheduled items up to $2,500 each. So I don't have to itemize out everything. So down
Okay.
here, I have a specific amount on my one selfie station for $6,000. The difference is going to be, you have the ability to have it covered on replacement cost or actual cash value. And then you're taking into account like depreciation on your property. And then, I know that everybody that bought a selfie station booth bought it for probably about $10,000. We know it's not going to sell for $10,000. So you don't have to necessarily put it on here for $10,000. That's up to you. You get
So
to
that's
choose the amount of
separate.
insurance.
That's separate from that $3,000 spot you had. I thought that was the.
It
So
is.
what?
It is. So the 3,000 here, I might, I could have my surfaces are not going to be part of this selfie booth. Because I have two types of booths. So I have the smaller ring light booths, and then I have a big selfie station. Actually, I have two big selfie stations.
Yeah, I have one of each as well.
Sorry?
I have one of each as well. So it's interesting that you had that separate. So I'm glad I saw
Mhm.
that.
Yeah, so you can, and that's why I said I have to make some changes to my policy, to be totally honest with everybody here. Because I bought most of it very quickly last year and just didn't touch it. I'm just personally not the person to claim anything until it turns out to be catastrophic, like totally catastrophic. And it's very rare that most of my stuff is leaving at the same time. But basically, you would see here selfie booth 6,000. I'll probably put the other selfie booth on here and maybe adjust these down to $5,000 each. You don't have to purchase another selfie booth if it breaks. The mirror booth people, if you want to keep doing a mirror booth, you can. You can just get something comparable. It doesn't have to be. You can get a ring
Right.
booth. But over here, when you're looking at these are going to be your unscheduled things. If I have a total catastrophic loss, let's say that I go and I rent a trailer from U-Haul, I hook it up to my car. I put everything in there because all 4 of my booths are out. All of my props are out. All of my paper is out. All of my printers are out. I don't want to have a big conversation and try and list out what do I have in there that's been destroyed. I'm just going to get $2,500 and call it a day.
So my next question, I guess the reason people want to put it on their homeowners or whatever is because if it's something happens to it at the home, like if there's a fire or something and everything in your home is destroyed, including your business,
Mhm.
then that's so, but nothing covers does this insurance cover that if it's damaged when it's
Yeah,
not?
that's why you have the defined location here.
Okay, so if it's
So
damaged,
this is one of my houses. And then this is one of my storage units.
okay, so if it's in any of those properties, it's covered if it gets damaged or destroyed.
As long as you have the location listed, yes.
But nothing, okay, and that's still covered under the business. You don't have to have the homeowners. Okay,
Right,
that,
so if I'm
uh,
storing everything, at my buddy's house down the road and it's only gonna be there for like a day or two, you could probably just call your agent and say, hey, I have it over here at 1935 Crafton rather than 1933. They might just bind it for the day. If it's gonna be there for a longer period of time, all you wanna do is call and tell them. And then break this out.
okay, so you're literally just insuring it no matter where it's at, as long as you let them
Mhm.
know. Okay,
Yeah, and then the inland marine portion of it is just gonna make sure that you're covered when you're moving it from A to B and from B to A.
okay. That was helpful.
I'm glad. So I think the last thing that's gonna be most important to everybody here is what are the auto things that you can do? So we have some questions here about what is hired non-owned auto? Hired auto are going to be autos of other people. And then your non-owned, just come down here to this. Only those autos that an insured leases, hires, rents, or borrows. But not from an employee. And then you come down here to number 9, which is your non-owned. You're not owning it, leasing, hiring it, renting it, or borrowing it. So you're including those that are owned by your employees, partners, and members. So we're always going to tell you that you should have hired and non-owned auto on your business policies for us pretty much all the time. And the other important thing to know is that you can do some other things and get creative. If you want to put your car into your business's name, you can do that. And then you can start talking to your insurance agent about some of these other covered symbols. Any owned only, owned private passengers, but you probably don't really need to worry about those. The thing that most of us are going to be looking at is going to be this hired and non-owned auto. So you definitely want to have that at an absolute minimum. It's only going to provide liability coverage. It's not going to provide property damage, which is, or sorry, not property damage, physical damage, which is going to be your, in terms of personal auto, comprehensive and collision. So it's not going to cover that, but it's going to cover your liability toward other people when you're driving on the road in a business capacity, or when your employees or your contractors are driving on the road in a business capacity for you. Lisa asked, if we have auto coverage, do we still need separate auto insurance on a personal vehicle? Yes. So you can, like I said, you can get creative. You can you can talk to your agent and add one of these owned autos onto your policy. It's not necessarily going to be any cheaper, but you can consolidate it. If you are using your car for business use and it is in your name, so my car is under Jessica Palmer. In that case, I have my car on a personal auto policy. I have it listed as being for business use because in the event that something happens and I'm driving it for work, it's going to be covered because I've declared that I'm doing it for business use. And that's what I use my car for primarily. But I also have these coverages here because I do hire people to take my car. So then they're covered. Sorry, I'm looking to see if we had one new message. Overall, the policies, they can vary state by state. Definitely talk with somebody who's going to be in your state. The biggest difference for me is going to be this one right here, number 5 for no fault. I live in Pennsylvania, which is a no-fault state. The other state that I am licensed in is Ohio, and it is not a no-fault state. So your liability is a little bit different from a legal standpoint at that moment. And then as far as your personal auto policies go, you're going to want to have, in an absolute bare minimum, you should have 100,000, 300,000 liability limits, and 100,000 on your property damage limit. But we're actually telling people to up that to 250, 500,000 because of how many people are driving around with a Tesla and how much a car costs right now. Because you're going to exhaust your limit very quickly. If you total a car, which everybody is totaling cars, that's all they do. They all get totaled. So don't hit anybody. That does not work out well. Auto coverage, what should we get if the vehicle is in our personal name but used for business? Like I said, for mine, what you can do it two ways. You can put it on your policy because you are more than likely, check with your carrier. More than likely you will automatically be considered a named insured because you are the owner of the business. So you can put your car on there. It does not have to be titled to the business. If you don't want to do that, you can keep it on a personal auto policy, and then you can just rate it tell your carrier that you use it for business. They may not even want you to do that. They may just want to have it declared that you might be doing that. And you can keep that with your agent, but your carrier will tell you better on that. And it doesn't necessarily always end up being a lot more expensive. It might be an extra $50. Because that's usually the one thing that people are like normally freaking out about, is if it's going to cost a lot more, but it really, we don't see that. They just want to make sure that it's declared so that it's being rated properly and that they know what they're getting into. Are there any other questions that anybody had, or anything that we didn't talk about that you were hoping to hear about?
I see one that you didn't address. It was from Jill. Let's see. Oh, it says, can you provide a couple scenarios, examples of when inland marine would be used as the policy coverage?
Yeah, I mean, if somebody knocks your booth over when you're at an event and you're going to claim it as damage on your policy, that's an example of when your equipment is not stored at a location and it's out being used. Or if you're driving it and you're in the middle of taking it to the hotel that you're working at that night and you get into a car accident where somebody else hits you or you've hit somebody, either way, right off the bat, that's going to be something that provides the coverage for it.
Oh, one thing someone asked earlier, what was the name of the I'm going to write it down. The name of the insurance that you said was like the best one?
Well, I don't know if I'd say it's the best one.
The one that you said.
It's definitely up there. Mine is with auto owners. There are a handful of other really well-rated carriers out there. You're going to want to look for somebody who is.
Did you say auto owners?
Yes, it is auto owners. And what's really fun is that it's not necessarily an auto policy, common misconception. They also have a division of auto policies that are written by a company, a subsidiary of their company called homeowners insurance. It's really fun to explain to people. They'll be like, there's something wrong. I'm like, no, there's nothing wrong. It's just the way that it is. So let me log out here. And I'll show you what the rating system is. About auto owners. Wrong one. Oh, I work at auto owners. My bad. Yeah, see here. Because this isn't confusing or anything. Yeah, I thought so. I know, yeah, auto owners rights in Michigan.
So this was one of the business, like,
Yeah. So here it is right here. AM Best Company. You want to keep an eye out for these ratings. Here. It's gonna make sure that the company's solvent. But then they also take into account, like, what kind of claims history they have, if they're bringing enough, solvency, bringing in enough money to pay in the event of a catastrophic loss in a certain region where basically everybody gets it, which is what we start seeing in some of these other like lower tiered carriers. But always check what the AM Best rating is if you're concerned about, if they're going to pay, if you're going to have a headache. Some of the carriers that I've seen, some people using, I think Hiscox was one of them, was that they were like, we'll see certificate requests come in that say we will not accept somebody who's being insured between A, B, and C. And if you look them up, it's either that they have a solvency issue or they just don't answer the phone about paying for a claim.
okay, so let me ask you about that. So
Mhm.
that is is it Hiscox, or how do you say it?
Hiscox.
And then also like RV Nuccio, like, would those be considered kind of budget?
No, I think Hiscox was the one. Insurance. Goodness, what was it?
I mean, I don't know about a lot of people, but I know, like, for me, I was just, when I first started, I just sort of Googled, I need photo booth insurance, and like grabbed one that came up, and, haven't ever talked to a real person. And like, do we have legit insurance?
Yeah, between the two, I would say to go to the RV Nuccio route. Basically with these guys, like they say right here, they have these specialty insurance products. So they're the ones that are writing the policy, but if you look at it, it's actually written by somebody else, is who's providing the insurance coverage. But it's a way of essentially like cornering the market. If I were to say like, hey, I don't know, we'll just use auto owners. Hey, auto owners, I have this really great access to like hundreds of photo booth owners. We could really just corner the market on this. Can you put together a special policy with a special rating on it just for this? And then can you also help me get licensed to write it in all 50 states? And that's basically what they have going on here. It's not that it's anything necessarily bad. It's just one way of doing business.
Okay.
Because if you look at it, pretty much everything they're doing is events related at the top.
Yeah, I see that. I never noticed that before.
Mhm.
Oh, okay. Let me ask a question that someone else like Keisha asked, and then you addressed it, but I just want to clarify. So for the vehicle, like, are you going to have, like, for example, I have a minivan. That's what I use for work because it's big, but then it's also what I use for home. Like, would you have it covered twice?
No, you don't want to cover it twice. You're actually going to open yourself up to more of a headache if you did have a claim. Because at that point you have two different policies that somebody can make a claim against. So that's not the way you want to do it. The first thing that we usually ask is, do you have it titled to yourself or to your business? And if you have it to yourself, 9 times out of 10, you're going to want to just put it on your personal policy. But I mean, you can put it on the commercial policy. I have people that do that are contractors because they're using it most of the time for business use. So that's where they have the biggest exposure.
Actually, and while this might help other people too, but so for a time I had a little van. It was like a Ford Transit Connect or something like that. So there's no seats in the back. So we were
Mhm.
required to get business insurance on that because that means like, I don't know. I mean, you would
Mhm.
know what that means.
Yeah,
Like,
there are
something about
certain
the fact-
vehicles. There are certain vehicles that your auto carrier won't accept. Like one that we just had the other day, they called in, they told us that it was a pickup truck. It turns out that it was a landscaping truck, but we didn't know that until we put the VIN in. Because they told us it was a pickup. And it was a pickup. It's just a really big one.
So just
But it's
something,
usually based off of weight, or the style of car.
or is it okay? Because like with this, it had no back seats, and so I
Mhm.
remember thinking,
Yeah.
well,
So
shoot,
it's not a passenger. It's not a private passenger vehicle.
right.
It's gonna be a
Well, because
vehicle.
I even had been like, okay, well, what if I buy seats for the back, have it our insurance, so it's personal, and then whoever we spoke to, they're like, yeah, but if you happen to get pulled over while the seats aren't in it,
Right.
then it wouldn't,
Yeah.
oh, someone
So
has,
it really just depends. The best thing you could do would be just, again, check with whatever agent you have. Don't be afraid to call your agent. That's what we're here for, is to answer questions. And go ahead, build that relationship with them. You want to do that. Because as you grow your business, things are going to change. You're going to have more exposure. I mean, we haven't even talked about like cyber exposure and whether or not you have that. But you probably do. You may not want to pay the premium for it. But it's something that we see more and more, and we start recommending it to people. And we can touch on that very briefly if you want to.
I see that Swady, is it Swady has her hand up. I don't know if that was up before because I didn't see oh, it's down. Okay, I guess you got her question answered.
I'm looking at Teresa's comment here. Teresa, I would love to know what you had on that policy. Like for us, I would not ever say like, we need to have blanket of additional insured and blanket subrogation waivers for everything. That's something for me that makes my life a lot easier. When I'm doing certificates for contractors, cleaning companies, things like that are constantly calling me to get certificates for stuff. And then we're adding it on all the time. And at that point, if you have 6 different people asking to be an additional insured on your policy, it usually does become cheaper when you put them on as a blanket. But again, those are things that like your agent would really, really be the person to guide you through that, whether you need to have it or not. I did want to show you guys the contract that I have for my wedding, for my venue. So whether or not your people are actually taking a look at this stuff, which I guarantee they're not. Right here. So I'm having my hotel, or we're having our wedding at the Kimpton Hotel Monaco, Pittsburgh. They're requiring that we have insurance, $1 million. And they must be an additional insured. So we're starting to see this pretty much everywhere. And then it's the same thing down here because our business is going to be considered an outside contractor. So these are things that you're probably going to start seeing more and more of. Within the contracting business in general, we've been seeing this everywhere. And at the end of the day, we really are contractors.
So this is the contract you were given from the venue for your wedding. Is that what you're saying? Yeah. Okay.
Yep. So
Which-
I'm signing off saying that I'm going to make sure that all of these people have these.
Right. Which I'm sure a lot of brides don't. I mean, because I'll be asked like 2 days before.
Nobody looks at this.
Where it's like, oh my gosh, the venue needs this. Yeah, I know the venue needs that.
Yeah. No, nobody looks at this stuff. For me, I looked at it because This used to be the bread and butter of my life, is just working in corporate events. And now I just do it on the side and plan events when they come up. So I read through the contract and said, yeah, this is pretty basic. This looks like every contract I've ever read in my life. Jill, you have a list of tips when reviewing our policies, things to look for. What are the limits? Insurance coverage. Yeah, actually, work comp, that's an interesting one that you put on here too. Oh, hold on a second. Liability covers if our equipment hurts somebody. Yep, that's your liability. Hotel rug is damaged by tape. That's going to end up being on your liability portion. Yeah, work comp is a state by state issue. So in Pennsylvania, the term that's used is monopolistic. So when you live in a monopolistic state for work comp, example would be Ohio, because the two states can't do anything the same. In Ohio, all of your worker comp is going from the state. So that is the only place that you can get it. For us in Pennsylvania, that's not the case. So I can write a work comp policy separately through multiple different carriers. I did copy, I have it here, this long thing here. I'm going to copy it and put it in the group just as a jumping point for everybody. I forget what this even started with. Oh, it's going to make me break it up into pieces. What's that? But I could put together something that's a little more extensive that talks about what you want to be looking at and what kinds of things you want to look at when reviewing your policy. Might take me a little bit, but probably after June. But in the meantime, if anybody wanted to send me their stuff, I'm happy to take a look at it. I may not be licensed in your state, so take everything with a grain of salt and talk to your agent. Anybody else have any questions? You guys can fire them away if you want to unmute yourself or something. Or if there's something that I didn't talk about, feel free to ask. We can talk about it.
I just want to say thank you. It was very informative and helpful. And Julia, as always, thank you for putting this stuff out for us, because this is super helpful and getting this information. Sometimes this is so easy and very daunting. So thank you, Julia, and to you too, Jessica.
Thanks. Yeah, you're welcome. Happy to help.
Thank you. This was all Jessica's idea. She like this kept coming up. She's like,
It
we
keeps
need to get
coming
on
up.
a chat.
Well, now
Oh
you
my God.
if you just get my taxes all figured out, that'd be great.
Well, I'm not an accountant.
Yes, I could use a bookkeeper too.
I have one of those. But I think he's in Pennsylvania only. He is great though. I mean, I can tell you how some of the things that we've done. I mean, you can't do, for me, I don't claim my car. There's certain weight limits for that or something. I don't know. I track my mileage. But I mean, your insurance policy is a write-off at the end of the day. So use it, put it on there, cover your ass and put it on there. Sorry, I swear a lot. It's taken a lot for me to not swear tonight. I heard him. I heard you laughing.
Well, would it be okay if we just had like maybe like a follow-up post or something like that, and then maybe like people could post questions. that
Yeah,
come up.
I know that some people said that they were gonna listen to the recording, so if we wanted to do a follow-up there, we could do that. And I can answer them as they come up. Oh, Jill, yeah. So I personally have not had anybody make claims on photo booths. I think I'm the only photo boother that we cover, but we cover some other events companies too. For those, we had a stage that fell at some point. That we had to work on a claim for. So things like that. I mean, you could electrocute somebody. For us, it's going to be, you're probably going to see somebody get electrocuted. They're going to trip over your cord. They're going to knock your booth over. They're going to knock your booth onto themselves. And yes, the really bad accident with her photo booth trailer, that is a perfect example of why you want to have coverage for a hired non-known policy. I don't think that she owned that car. You want to make sure that your liability is going to extend to a trailer. You're going to want to check that with your agent. And that's a perfect example of where the inland marine comes into play, because that right there, you're moving your business property from one point to another. It's not covered under your homeowner at that point. You need to have it on a business policy. And another good case in point for why you might want to consider work comp. Maybe make sure people have health insurance. So why should we not have it on our homeowner? Is that as a general question to put on the things to look for? I can't see if Jill is typing. So like diving deeper into why you don't want to have it on your homeowner. It's business property. It's not personal property. There might be different stipulations in how your homeowner policy is written. For us, specifically to computers, whether or not it's covered at replacement cost or if it's covered at actual cash value. So similar to like when you buy a new car and you drive it off the lot, it used to drop like 50% in value. Everybody used to say. I don't think that's the case anymore. But that's going to be your actual cash value on your property. And then the replacement cost is, oh my God, they don't make this anymore and I need to go buy something comparable. How much money am I going to get for it? $5,000 on actual cash value versus $5,000 on replacement cost are two completely different things. And here comes a cat. Please stop. Don't stay there. Come on, you can say hi.
Okay, let's give, does anybody else have any other questions? So we can let poor Jessica go hang out with her cats.
Well, this one, both of my cats are really big. This is his 5-year adopt-a-versary. He is my little snuggle bug and he sleeps with me every night. He's come to tell me that it's actually bedtime because it's 10:15 here in PA and I usually go to bed pretty early. So.
Well, thank you so much for taking all of this time to talk to us. We really appreciate it. And yeah, thank you. And then I'll create a post that has the video. I'm not sure how quickly, I don't know if the video is immediate or what, but
no idea.
But then we'll just offer, we'll encourage people to write questions, anything else that came up or whatever, and that would be awesome.
Yep, that sounds good.
Okay, well, thanks to everyone for listening in. And thank you, especially Jessica, for taking the time to talk to us and come so prepared. And sorry, I turned my video off. I'm like looking like death.
Lounging around.
Yeah. Anyway, but awesome. Thank you. Thank you. And everyone have a good night. And yeah, well, I'm working. I have something else in the works. In fact, I'll tell you guys because you're on here. So I'm planning a basic photography class. I know that there's a lot, like, it seems like the neon sign thing is like tripping everyone up lately.
Oh, I think I made my couple last weekend a little angry because I had to turn it down so far in order for my camera to pick it up.
Yeah. So it's, I mean, it is definitely a tricky thing. So anyway, so I'm working on a date for a photography thing that would kind of include those sorts of things. So shh, don't tell anyone.
Awesome.
But okay. Are we good?
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
If
Okay.
you guys want to
thanks.
send me anything, feel free. I think I'm active enough over there. Happy to take a look at it. You know, and maybe, you know, I might be able to connect people with another agent in the area, you know, that you're in. Can't make any guarantees. But usually, I mean, I would even just say, like, if they have Cincinnati insurance, you can find them a lot easier because of how they have the search on their website. Cincinnati's usually pretty solid, but I think that they're also kind of regional too. They're down in Cincinnati, Ohio. Very creative, these insurance folks.
Okay. Well, thank you again. And we'll just say goodnight to everyone.
All right.
Okay. Thanks,
Bye,
Jessica.
ladies.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Bye. Bye.